Donald Trump could win the popular vote. Thank you all so much for clicking on today's video, and without further ado, today we're going to talk about what exactly Donald Trump's best scenario is in the 2024 general election, because folks, Donald Trump is experiencing a last-minute surge across the country, especially in the swing states. He's up in all the swing states according to RCP, and we can take a look right here at the no toss-ups map, and we see that Donald Trump is favored to win this election 312 to 226. But what I wanted to talk about today was, what if Trump wins the popular vote? And specifically, how much would he win by, and what exactly is his best case scenario? So if we go to Polymarket, we can see here that the betting odds are favoring Trump heavily over Harris. Trump now has a 2/3 chance of winning. He's doing good in all the swing states. People are betting he's going to win. But what really caught my eye was the popular vote winner, and specifically how Donald Trump is rising very heavily in the betting odds to win the popular vote, something that hasn't happened since 2004. So I wanted to look at the electoral map, and I wanted to talk about Trump's best case scenario, which I do believe is the fact that he could win the popular vote by about 1% nationally. I really do think that would be the maximum and the best that Trump could do, simply because no Republican has won the popular vote since 2004 with George Bush. But it is a Republican favorable year, so without further ado, we're going to fill in all the states that would go safe. You have the Great Plains states, Nebraska at large, Texas, yes, that would be safe Republican, Ohio and Iowa gone for the Democrats, Florida would have been safe anyways. If you nuke it, it's going safe, Maine 2nd congressional district, and I'm going to be wild here, I'm going to say North Carolina, because North Carolina is one of those states that, although it barely voted for Trump back in 2020, Trump only won it by, I think, 1.2% to be specific. It is very much so to the right of the nation, and Biden won the popular vote by 4.5 points, meaning that if Trump is winning by 1, you could see North Carolina vote for Trump by 8 to 10 percentage points. So now, looking at the map, Donald Trump has 235 electoral votes safe. This is the best case scenario for him. As for Kamala Harris, her best case scenario would be winning the West Coast, winning most of the Eastern Seaboard by a safe margin. You have Maine's 1st congressional district, Illinois, and Hawaii. I'm also going to throw in New York, but I do think this would be much closer, probably about a 12-point win for Harris if it was Trump's best case scenario and winning the popular vote. So this is the map. Harris would have 167 safe electoral votes. Donald Trump would have 235 safe electoral votes. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the likely Republican states, the states that would vote for President Trump anywhere from 5 points to 9.9 points. So we're going to start with the state of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is a very demographically favorable state for President Trump and the Republicans. There's a lot of non-college educated white voters in the state of Wisconsin that would shift it vastly to the right. And if Trump's really going to win the popular vote, folks, he is going to win Wisconsin by, I'd say, 6 points or so. And the reason why I say that is you look at the trends, you look at how Wisconsin barely voted for Biden back in 2020, despite him winning the popular vote by, like I said, 4.5 points. If Trump is winning by 1, that is almost a 6-point shift for Trump. So he would easily win Wisconsin by 5.5 to 6, maybe even 7 points if it was a really good night. Next, I want to focus on the likely Democrat states, which there are a couple. I think the first likely Democrat state in this scenario would be New Jersey. Now, New Jersey has a lot of working class individuals. It is a pretty big state. However, it's next to New York. You have a lot of liberal suburbs. If Trump does better in the popular vote, he's probably also winning an outright majority of the suburban vote. He's also winning a majority of the white vote, which would be huge in a state like New Jersey, which has a big white working class population. However, I do see Harris still holding on to New Jersey, probably by about 8 points, instead of the typical 15 points that the Democrats usually have in the state of New Jersey. I also believe that the state of Colorado would be a likely Democrat state. The reason why I say this is because Colorado used to be a Republican state, then it became a swing state, and you have a lot of Democrat voters who have moved to the state of Colorado. People from California, people from New York, people from the Eastern Seaboard, and all these liberal places are making Colorado a Democrat stronghold. And while I don't think Donald Trump can win the state of Colorado, I do believe that Colorado could be closer this time around. I don't think it'll be a 14-point win for Harris like it was for Biden back in 2020, but you could see Harris eke out a 7 to 9 point victory in the state of Colorado. You do have the Aura as residents who are very dissatisfied with the immigration situation there, and that could push Colorado a little bit to the right, but I wouldn't expect any miracles in the state of Colorado, especially with how many liberal residents the state has acquired in recent years. Now, I'd like to focus on the lean Republican states, which there are quite a few, and I think first we should start off with the state of Georgia, because Georgia is a state that I do believe is going to flip no matter what, and it's looking very good right now. Republicans are doing great in the early vote. There's a surge surge of Republican early voters nationwide, which is very, very good for Trump's election odds. However, in the state of Georgia, I think Trump's ceiling is 4%. I don't think he could win it by a likely margin, but I do see Trump improving. If he's winning the popular vote, he's probably doing really well with African American voters, which there are a lot in the Deep South, especially in Georgia. He's probably doing good with Hispanic voters, which there are a lot, especially in the Sun Belt. And overall, I see Georgia being a 4-point win for Trump, best case scenario. Next, we're going to talk about the state of Pennsylvania and the 19 electoral votes that it boasts, because that is a crucial battleground state this election. If you win Pennsylvania, you're going to the White House. If you lose Pennsylvania, you're not going to the White House. And ultimately, I do believe that Donald Trump, his best case scenario in the state of Pennsylvania, would be winning it by about 3%, which would put it in the lean column. And the reason why I say this is you look at the trends, you look at how the Amish are coming out to vote, which I've never seen, and I think it's a very rare occurrence. You see Trump has a great field operation in the state of Pennsylvania. Republicans are surging in voter registration, and they made history narrowing the Democrat lead. So Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes would go to Donald Trump by a comfortable margin of 2.5 to 3%, which would, as we can see with the map, hand Donald Trump the presidency. But we're not done, and this map isn't finished. So next, we're going to go over to neighboring Michigan, which I made a video on, and Harris is screwed in Michigan, but Donald Trump is even doing good with Arab American voters. I never expected that, but there are some polls that show he has a slight lead with Arab American voters. And in the state of Michigan, Donald Trump actually has like a 1.5% lead in the polls right now. So if he's going to win the popular vote, he's probably also winning Michigan by about 2 to 2.5%. It would be the closest of the Rust Belt trio, but it would hand Donald Trump those additional 15 electoral votes, which would comfortably give him the president. And again, if Wisconsin goes Republican, if Pennsylvania is going Republican, there's a good shot that Michigan will also go Republican, because these states vote together. You don't see a situation where Wisconsin does its own thing and then Michigan votes the opposite way. It's possible. Maybe we'll see it this election, but again, this is a best case scenario. Trump wins Michigan by 2 to 2.5%. Now we're going to go down to the Southwest, where we have Arizona and Nevada. And I do see Arizona being one of those pivotal states that could decide this election. So this is an important one. Regarding the state of Arizona, I could see Donald Trump winning it anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5%. Best case scenario, it would be in the lean margin. And this is because Donald Trump is surging with Hispanics. He's surging with minority voters. He is doing better with the white vote, and he's also doing good with the suburban vote. So if he's going to win the popular vote by 1, he's also going to take Arizona by 3 or 4%, because again, in 2020, Arizona did vote to the right of the nation, barely, but if it was a 4-point shift, that would be enough to give it to Trump by a comfortable margin of 3 to 4%. We can also say that confidently in the state of Nevada, although I do think it would be closer than Arizona. I think Nevada could shift Republican by a couple of points, and it could give President Trump a win in the state of Nevada by about 2%, maybe a little bit over 2%, just like Clinton and Biden had in 2016 and 2020 respectively. So looking at the map, we already see that Donald Trump comfortably gets to 312 electoral votes, but we're not done. We still have a few states left in the map, and I want to start with the lean Democrat states, because in the state of New Mexico, we're seeing something very interesting happening. There was a poll that just came out. It was on X or Twitter, and it showed that Trump was only behind Harris by 3 points. Now, you have to be careful with polls like that, because they could be used for Democrat fundraising or to scare people into voting, or you name it. Whatever the reason is, some of those polls could be fake. Just like the Quinnipiac poll that showed Trump's down 17 points in Wisconsin back in 2020, the same could be said for the state of New Mexico. However, I do believe that Donald Trump, in a best case scenario, could get closer to winning the state of New Mexico, although you do have very liberal and progressive suburbs. You do have Albuquerque. The white voters there are very Democrat leaning, but Trump is doing better with Hispanic voters, and that could help him in the state of New Mexico, but I don't think it'll be enough to win the state, because he's just not doing good enough with the white voters in that state. For whatever reason, similar to Minnesota, the white vote here is, or it tends to be, very progressive. Maybe it's the fact that you have the Albuquerque, Santa Fe, the Arts District, whatever it may be, but New Mexico would probably stay in the Harris camp, even in a Trump best case scenario, although it would be much closer. Now, I think we should also go to Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. Same deal here. It is a more liberal district. The suburbanites there, even if Trump was doing amazing with the white voters and the minority voters, you could see this get very close, and I could see Trump losing it by 2.5, maybe 3%, and it wouldn't be a 10-point or a 7-point win for the Democrats like it was in previous elections. So this could get closer, but it wouldn't be a landslide, and it would be a more competitive district in the election. And that leaves us with the closest states best case scenario. That leaves us with Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine at large. And I think we're going to have to go from east to west here. So we're going to start with Maine at large, because Maine is an interesting state. It's historically been Democrat, but you do have a lot of non-college educated white voters. In a best case scenario, Trump is doing really good with those voters, and I do see him winning a majority of them. However, you do have the fact that Maine is a more progressive state as a whole, and you have Portland, Maine holding the state back from voting Republican. So I do see Harris winning Maine at large, although it would be a lean margin, 2 to 3%. As with the state of New Hampshire, you get a very similar deal. New Hampshire is a white working class state. It's rural, small towns. It should be good for Republicans. However, the last time a Republican won the state of New Hampshire was back in the year 2000. This time around, however, I do believe that Donald Trump could win the state of New Hampshire if he does good enough with the white voters. It is a small state and it would be extremely close in the vote margin. So, best case scenario, I say Donald Trump wins the state of New Hampshire. I'm going to be bold here. And he would win it by less than 0.5%. We're talking 0.1% or less. I mean, it's going to be decided by a couple hundred votes. You have a lot of Bostoners that moved to the state of New Hampshire, but there could be a miracle and Trump could win it if he's winning the popular vote, certainly. That would be his best case scenario. And that leaves us with the state of Virginia and Minnesota. So with Virginia, a lot of people have been talking about Virginia as a whole. They've been talking about how it's going to be close. Trump's going to win it. Trump could win it. He's surging. A lot of YouTubers are saying that. And I agree with all of that rhetoric, just so we're clear. I do believe Trump can win Virginia. Biden did win it by 10 points back in 2020, which is a lot, especially for a state that used to be Republican, but like Colorado, it trended far to the left. A lot of people move there. You have a lot of DC government workers, which does pose a problem if you're trying to win the state of Virginia. The northern part dictates the rest of the state. But Trump's winning the popular vote by 1. Virginia, there's a lot of minorities there. If Trump's doing good with African American voters, Hispanic American voters, Arab American voters, if he's doing good with everybody, then yes, you could see a situation where government workers don't turn out for Harris. A lot of people don't like her within her own party, and Donald Trump could barely win the state of Virginia for the first time since 2004. Donald Trump could win Virginia by less than 0.5%. I would say, similar to New Hampshire, 0.1 or 0.2%. I mean, we're talking just a few thousand votes across the state. And that leaves us with Minnesota, which has been a white whale for Republicans since the 1972 election with Richard Nixon. He won the state, and Minnesota has always been more to the left of the country. And this is because I think primarily the Twin Cities, which have most of the state's population. However, you also have the western part of the state, which is more rural, but they don't really turn out to vote. So if conservatives came out and voted, especially if they voted early like they are in Pennsylvania or in Georgia, and you got those margins up, and if Trump maybe held a couple more rallies in Minnesota, he does better with the suburbanite vote, I could see him pulling off an extremely narrow victory, best case scenario. I don't see Minnesota flipping in our current timeline, but best case scenario, Trump wins Minnesota. And that would give him 339 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 199. This is Donald Trump's best case scenario. He would sweep the Rust Belt. He would flip back states from previous elections that hadn't been won by Republicans in a long time. And it would be a glorious moment. Winning the popular vote for Trump would also give him the mandate to be president. It would legitimize his presidency. You wouldn't have people saying he's illegitimate because he won the popular vote. So we can make this map happen though if we get out and vote. Grab your friends, talk to people who aren't political, get them to vote, because this is the most important election, certainly in my lifetime, but in the country's history. November 5th, 2024. Let's make this map happen, folks. Thank you all for listening. Remember, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video. Politics Enhanced out.